Imagine a dusty, sun-baked landscape in the heart of Texas. The year is 1836. A small, crumbling Spanish mission stands as a silent witness to a story of courage, defiance, and ultimate sacrifice. This is the story of the Alamo. It all begins in the town of San Antonio de Bexar. Tensions are boiling over between American settlers, known as Texians, and the Mexican government led by General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. The Texians, hungry for independence, have seized control of the town and its most strategic point, the Alamo. It wasn't a fortress, not really. It was a collection of stone walls and old buildings, more of a religious compound than a military stronghold. But for the men who gathered there, it was everything. It was the line in the sand. Inside these walls, a small, determined group of about 200 men prepared for the inevitable. They were a motley crew. Frontiersmen, doctors, lawyers, and adventurers from all corners of the United States, and even parts of Europe. They were led by figures who would soon become legends. There was the young, charismatic Lieutenant Colonel William B. Travis, a 26-year-old lawyer thrust into command. His passion for the cause of Texas liberty was infectious. Alongside him stood two giants of the American frontier. First, Jim Bowie, a name already famous for the formidable knife that bore his name. He was a rugged, seasoned fighter, but by the time the siege began, he was gravely ill, confined to a cot, yet his spirit remained unbroken. And then there was Davy Crockett, the king of the wild frontier. A former congressman from Tennessee, Crockett arrived with a small band of volunteers, not for land or titles, but because he believed in the fight for freedom. His presence, with his famous coonskin cap and his trusty rifle, Old Betsy, was a massive boost to morale. On February 23, 1836, the horizon darkened. Santa Anna's army, thousands strong, arrived in San Antonio. A blood-red flag was raised over the San Fernando Cathedral. A chilling message. It meant no quarter. No prisoners would be taken. Surrender was not an option. For the defenders of the Alamo, the choice was stark: victory or death. Travis immediately penned a letter, one of the most famous documents in American history. It was a desperate yet defiant plea for reinforcements. He addressed it to the people of Texas and all Americans in the world. He wrote, "I am besieged by 1,000 or more of the Mexicans under Santa Anna. I shall never surrender or retreat. Then I call on you in the name of liberty, of patriotism and everything dear to the American character, to come to our aid. If this call is neglected, I am determined to sustain myself as long as possible and die like a soldier who never forgets what is due to his own honor and that of his country. Victory or death." He sent messengers racing out, hoping against hope that help would arrive in time. But as the days turned into an agonizing week and then another, only a small group of 32 brave men from the town of Gonzales managed to break through the Mexican lines to join the defenders. The force inside the Alamo now stood at just under 200, against an army that swelled to over 2,000. For 12 days, the siege wore on. The air was thick with the constant roar of cannon fire. Santa Anna's artillery pounded the mission's walls, chipping away at the stone, testing the resolve of the men inside. The defenders returned fire, their long rifles picking off Mexican soldiers with deadly accuracy, making the attackers pay for every inch of ground. They repaired the walls, conserved their ammunition, and waited. The nights were filled with the sound of the degüello, a haunting bugle call that signaled no mercy. Inside the walls, the situation grew dire. Food was scarce, ammunition was dwindling, and exhaustion was setting in. Legend tells us that on the eve of the final assault, Colonel Travis gathered his men. Knowing there was no hope of relief, he drew a line in the sand with his sword. He explained the grim reality of their situation and asked all who were willing to stay and fight to the death to cross the line and stand with him. The story goes that every man, save for one, crossed the line. Even the ailing Jim Bowie, too weak to stand, asked his comrades to carry his cot over. One man, Louis Moses Rose, a veteran of Napoleon's army, chose to escape, later telling the tale of this dramatic moment. Before dawn on March the 6th, the 13th day of the siege, the final assault began. The air fell silent, then erupted in a wave of sound as thousands of Mexican soldiers charged the walls from all directions. Shouts of "Viva Santa Ana" filled the pre-dawn darkness. The Alamo's defenders rushed to their posts. The cannons, loaded with scrap metal and nails, tore devastating holes in the advancing columns, but the attackers kept coming, wave after wave. The fighting was brutal, chaotic, and hand-to-hand. The Texians fought with rifles, pistols, knives, and even their bare hands as the Mexican soldiers poured over the walls. Davy Crockett and his Tennesseans defended the wooden palisade at the south end of the mission. Travis was one of the first to fall, struck down while defending the north wall. The fighting raged in the open plaza, in the barracks, and finally, in the chapel itself. The defenders were pushed back room by room, until there was nowhere left to retreat. Within 90 minutes it was over. Every single defender of the Alamo was killed. Santa Anna had achieved his victory, but at a tremendous cost. He had lost hundreds of his own men, and he had created a set of martyrs. He thought he had crushed the Texas Rebellion, but he had actually ignited a fire that could not be extinguished. The news of the fall of the Alamo spread like wildfire. The story of the men who chose to sacrifice everything for the cause of independence galvanized the rest of Texas. "Remember the Alamo" became the rallying cry of the Texian army. Just 6 weeks later, under the command of General Sam Houston, a vengeful Texian force surprised Santa Anna's army at the Battle of San Jacinto. Shouting, "Remember the Alamo," they overwhelmed the Mexican forces in a stunningly short battle, capturing Santa Anna himself and securing Texas's independence. Today, the Alamo stands peacefully in the center of modern-day San Antonio. It is a shrine to the memory of those who fell there. It serves as a powerful symbol, not just for Texas, but for people everywhere, a testament to the idea that sometimes the greatest victories are born from the most profound sacrifices. The story of the Alamo reminds us that the fight for freedom often demands the ultimate price, and the courage of a few can inspire a nation. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story as moving as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical adventure. We'll see you in the next video.